So it's really nice to be able to see everything in a relatively short period of time. And keep in mind, this is a low-resolution version of the information. You notice down here it's still calculating data, because the high-resolution data that we capture, this is only about 20% of the information, but we only need 20% just to show it, because the file is actually so huge because of the amount of data that we have. It would slow the computer down, and the doctor would be waiting. So it'll now work in the background. He can see everything he needs to see, and then he's able to function on forward. So as we work on a real case, we're going to then work on the high resolution information. Because then what we do is we strip out the duplicated data and we compress the data files and then store them back in the computer.
And the file size of the files you send?
The initial file here, this would be around 12 gigabytes of information, which is massive. So that's why it's processing, and then what it's doing, it's going to strip it down to about 12 megabytes.
Okay.
And that's what's going to be emailed. Then we refine it again and then compress it again to about 2 or 3 megabytes, depending on the size of the case. So that's generally how big the file is in the compression process. So what we do is that we have so much information that we strip down to then get enough that we can work with. And then that's the real key to our system. The reason why we can do full mouth reconstructions is because we don't have any distortion in the data. Some of the other systems, they have a little bit of distortion in the data while the algorithms are putting the information together, which doesn't allow them to do full mouth rehabs. We can do 28 teeth if they want.
And it exports to mail and to FTP servers?
Yeah, we can go. We can upload anywhere we could transfer information to, and a lot of the labs are going to FTP sites.
Yeah.
So that's pretty easy to do, and then they have their own ways to access and import. Again, the importing and exporting of data is becoming more and more refined. It's the more and more acceptable it becomes, the more and more versatile it becomes. So it's pretty fascinating where all of the digital information is fitting together.
But you have your own design software for the system also, besides
we really don't sell anything.
No.
It's enabled in the system, but it's not really something that's critical. The only thing that happens with the laboratory application is the refinement of the margin. For example, some doctors have very unique prep techniques. For example, bevel, where 9 out of 10 technicians would look at it and say, that's where the margin is. But, a special doctor that you've been working at, the way he preps his teeth, and he wants it on the lower one that doesn't really look like the margin. Mm-hmm. So the lab has the ability to make final edits to the prep design. So before we mill the model, we'll mill it to the lab's final edit. And the reason why they have the final edit is because they're the ones responsible for making the crown. And if the crown doesn't fit and the doctor had the final edit, then the hands will be pointing this way, and the lab is ultimately in control of what they're willing to warranty and back up. So that's the reason why we give that. We do have the application for the doctor to be able to give some input and discuss and chat, but we always give the lab this final seal of approval before they authorize the milling of the models.
So, because we have the dental designer from 3Shape, the design platform, so we'll just import this file.
This is the clinical software. So what happens at this point is once this is sent off and processed, it'll then show up as a new case in the laboratory software.
Yeah.
Then you'll click open the new case, and then you'll review the case. The margins are generally picked out, selected, and found.
Okay.
Then what's going to happen is you would modify anything that you want there. At that point it's ready to go, you like it, you could then simply export the file, and then at that point in time you're free to do with it what you want.
Yeah.
So there's certain orientations for different CAD systems that you can select, and then you can simply upload it to an FTP site, or then put it on a stick, or put it on or email it, whatever system that you choose to transfer data with, and then away it goes. Okay. So at that point in time, what it now gives you the ability to do is you can now start the design of the coping while the model milling is taking place. So if you're milling the coping then, you can then mill the coping, sinter the zirconia, and by that time the model will come. You can do the final fitting and adjustments, and then you can do the final porcelain work or make any staining and glazing adjustments and then it's finished.
And the scan fee, does that pay for the model?
No, the model is paid for by the laboratory, and the scan fee is paid for by the dentist.
Okay.
It's really offsetting existing costs because the laboratory doesn't have to pick the model up. They don't have to pour the model, index the model, trim the dies. They don't have to call for missing due dates. They don't have to call for missing shade. All that information comes in. So there's a lot of reduced work. So the cost for the laboratory is generally a wash of what their existing costs are. But a big key for the lab is that the remake percentage is almost eliminated. And that's the biggest killer of profit for a laboratory. Now on the dentist side, if you look at the cost that they have to eliminate, the cost of the scan fee is going to eliminate light body, heavy body, bite registration material, trays, mixing tips, all of those parts and pieces. So
postage stamps.
Yeah, all of the different things that they're doing. And then also the rework time. So if they have to take 2 impressions, they've doubled their time. If it's a repack cord, they've doubled their time. If they have to do reduction copics, if they have to reduce the opposing, if you have to re-anesthetize the patient on the cementation appointment, this is all time-consuming and material costing. Well, now, generally, because the fit is so precise, doctors can simply pull off the temporary, use a single-phase cement, put the crown on, tap, 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 and it's done. So the time savings that doctors see on the cementation appointments is huge. So that's where the return on investment comes for the dentist. The laboratory, it's a wash, and then the remakes go down. So it's really a win-win for everybody. Then it creates the ability for the digital workflow. Everything in the industry is digital now. The biggest problem that's been holding it back is that everything starts with an analog impression, and then everything goes to digital, and then the inherent inaccuracy is transferred into everything that we do digitally.
Excellent.
So now we're able to take it right from the front end, take it right to the back. So it's pretty exciting where things are going. So that's the condensed version of the advantages.
Can you use the system as an insurance in high-risk groups who risk losing their teeth in the future?
And then that again would be more of a practice management integration, I would probably say. You're going to see more and more of that. Some of the integration software developments that I've seen companies working on now are complete amalgamations of data, complete flows of information, very detailed information. The dentist is going to be able to control the workflow of his information, his patient files, all the referrals information very precisely in the coming years. And if you really look at how it is now, it's really kind of sketchy. I mean, the things I've seen in development that various companies are coming up with are absolutely phenomenal. The industry is going to be, the doctor's going to be able to work much more efficiently than in years in the past. The best example of that is when you see how a doctor can work with digital x-ray now in comparison to how they worked in the past. So you imagine improvements at every aspect of dentistry is going to take place to those levels of efficiency, which is pretty exciting.